It's BS with Bob Schmidt here on today's Talk 1490. My name is Bob. My next guest is from the band The Babies. You've heard of them, right? John Bisaha joining me this morning. Did I say that correctly, John?
You absolutely did, Bob. Thank you very much.
Hey,
you are in the 5 percentile.
Well, I just wanted to make sure that I know that I probably said it wrong going into the break, but I wanted to make sure that I said it correctly now. But being a part of the band The Babies, that's pretty cool. How did you get the job as the lead singer?
You know, I was called by a friend of mine who used to play drums with me back in the 90s. A guy by the name of Mike Hansen used to play in Glass Tiger. They had a nice #1 hit back in the day. Anyway, Mike called me up and said, "Hey, I've got a friend of mine who's looking for a lead singer." And I said, "Great. You know, hopefully it's a 70s and 80s band who needs somebody." And he said, "Yeah." And he started playing a little bit of a name game. And, first name he picked out was Ricky Phillips. And I said, "Cool, I know who Ricky's playing with today." And then he said, "Jonathan Cain." And then I'm like, "Oh, we got a bad English reunion going on?" And he said, "Well, you said 70s and 80s." And then I went and said, "Is Tony and Wally in the band?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, yeah, get me the audition. And I went through about 3 months of auditions and met with Tony several times and spoke to Wally a couple of times. And, after about 3 months and I don't know how many times back and forth, I was chosen to be the lead singer. And it's, haven't looked back since then.
So is it difficult to resurrect a band that was big and then kind of had a hiatus and then it's kind of on the upswing again?
This is a Herculean task. So yes, for all the other older rock and roll bands, back in the 70s and 80s that are still out there doing it today, the only time they really stopped was in the mid 90s into early 2000s, right when grunge and rap took over. And the Babies had a 30-some-odd year hiatus. So yeah, we're like a 30-plus-year-old startup. If you're not on Facebook or online and have an ability to go and find out, you don't happen to just Google The Babies and then now all of a sudden see that we're back, you have no clue. So that's the deal, is trying to reach the masses. The Babies had huge fans back in the day, and either they know about it now or they've yet to hear about it, and it's really what our task is all about, trying to get everybody back in the know.
John Bisaha joining me this morning from The Babies. Is it hard to be a band in 2016 compared to, you said in the 90s you played in the band and with the Babies being around in the 70s and 80s, is it more difficult now, or was it more difficult then?
It's all the same. Being in a band, right? We're all, married together, and you have everybody's baggage, and it's a fun time to deal with it. I don't think that's changed at all. It's same schematics, right? You got to go rehearse, you got to go play your songs, you got to make sure you've got a show together, and you got to make sure you all get along. I think that the reason the Babies got back together, and more importantly, why Tony and Wally wanted to do it, it was one final real go-round, right? We're all getting a little bit older, and the music begged to be played because it hadn't been played in so long. That's really kind of what fuels us. Not only the music and the drive and the passion that we have for it, but more importantly, I think in this day and age, why do something if you're not going to enjoy it? And I believe that that's really what keeps us going, because the four of us that are in the core nucleus, plus Francesco and the Babettes, we all genuinely like each other. Mm-hmm. So it's really a very, very cool deal for us to keep doing it. And from that standpoint, it's not that much of a problem being in a band in 2016.
Is it hard to find that where you all get along? I know I had the opportunity a few weeks ago. I interviewed Paul Stanley, and Kiss is my favorite band in the world, and I asked him a similar question to that. So, I mean, is it difficult to do that, to have that friendship and that not feeling, I don't know, because I think that sometimes people feel jealous of somebody else, or hey, you got a better deal than I do, or what I mean. There's a little bit of animosity that runs in the within groups of people.
Yeah, no, not really. Within our little framework, not so much. I mean, there's a lot of support. We have a great deal of love and respect for Tony and Wally, mm-hmm. And first and foremost for myself. I mean, that's what keeps me driving. On this, it's the fact that I love them. And I was a big fan back in the day, and now I get to work alongside of them, and we're all brothers now. So we uphold each other, and we have a great time with each other, and I think that's really kind of what fuels it. So we have yet to pass over it past the honeymoon stage, even though we're into year 4 of this. But really, everything's still all new and fresh and lovey-dovey. We have a great time with it.
John Bisaha joining me this morning from the Babies on today's Talk 1490. After I do my show here, I do middays on our classic rock station, and we do a 2 for Tuesday, and not this last Tuesday, but a couple Tuesdays ago, I had a couple from the Babies, and I actually said that I had a chance to interview you during the last time. Now I'll have to say it again. Now I even have a liner, because I know that you sent me a liner yesterday, so I'll be able to actually play that. So that's kind
Absolutely.
That's kind of exciting. So is it tough to front a band where one of the, like John Waite used to be in the band, and so I mean, is it hard to kind of step into not his shoes, but to step into the limelight that was kind of created around when he was with the band?
In the beginning of this whole thing, I think that was the main focus, right? Like I said, I was a fan. I wanted to make sure that I did justice to the songs, because John Waite, one of my favorite singers, he's in my top 5 or 6, right? So I was always a fan, made sure that I at least sang the song, from a note perspective. Mm-hmm. I have a bit of John's tone, so that's always helpful. But I wanted to make sure, I put kind of the pressure on myself to make sure that I was adequate and up to the task to be able to go ahead and do this. And then when you throw double duty by making me play bass as well, now I had my task ahead of me. But I think I've risen to the challenge, and I think it's gotten a little bit easier on me. I've had a lot of acceptance, which is good. Mm-hmm. You're always going to have the people that, hey, if it's not John Waite, it's not the Babies. If it's not Steve Perry, it's not Journey. If it's not Lou Gramm, it's not Foreigner. Mm-hmm. And it's like, come on, people. It's now 2016. Let's get past the people. It's almost like get past who's the name on the back of the uniform. It's all about who's on the front of the uniform, right? I kind of look at it from that standpoint. I'm here to do a job to bring this music back that hasn't been played really like we're playing it now in 30-some-odd years. And that's the thing that drives us, because I believe that, the people haven't seen and heard this music in so long, and they flip out when they do. And it's really funny when you do it, you see it, where, you might understand and know Midnight Rendezvous head first, every time I think of you isn't time, blah, blah, right? Y'all know the main hits. But then when you start going deeper, you're like, I don't remember the Babies did that song. I can't remember the Babies did that song, and that's where you get it, So, the pressure's the pressure. I want to make sure that I'm just doing an adequate job and making sure that I do my best, and I just let the chips fall and let everything take care of itself from there.
I'm glad to hear that you said that. It's funny that you said actually the whole Foreigner thing. When I was a kid, Foreigner was one of my favorite bands. I remember getting a cassette for Christmas, and I had a chance to see them a few years ago in La Crosse here, and the band was called Foreigner, but none of the guys that were in the band were original Foreigner guys, but they still kicked ass. They still sounded good. They still, played the music that I expected to hear. And honestly, I don't think that a lot of people really, I mean, it's sad to say, but I mean, a lot of times people just, they hear the music, and that's what they go to hear rather than to see the person. Does that make any sense?
It makes total sense, and that's kind of what, my shtick and tagline is. It really, hey, it's great to, why don't you just come on out, experience the music, experience the fun and the energy of a Babies concert, because regardless of who's fronting it or singing it, you're going to have a great time. There's going to be a lot of energy. We rock very well for a bunch of older guys. And, I'll put my money where my mouth is, man. I'll refund anybody's money if they come to a show and say this is a piece of trash.
Right.
So,
well, that's another good thing to hear. So I got to ask. So, is it hard to sing with somebody else's style? Because you mentioned that you kind of got some of John Waite's style in your singing, but I mean, of course, you want to bring John into the band as well. So, like the newer stuff, the stuff that you brought into the band is obviously stuff that's more your style. But I mean, is it weird to kind of transform back and forth in between? You know what I mean? What people wanted to, what they needed, what they heard before, and making it sound like that, and then, bringing the new stuff and the new style in?
The funny thing with that is, the Babies were a big part of my foundation back, when I started writing my music.
Really?
So my favorite bands back in the day, the Babies were one of them, Journey was one of them, ELO, Chicago. Those were my big go-tos. So when I started writing stuff that had brass in it, that had strings in it, that had girl backup singers. It was just like, hey, there they are. It's the Babies. And the guitar player that I worked with back in those days, huge Babies fan. So I think that he turned me on to them when Broken Heart came out, and haven't looked back. So I don't say that the Babies are almost kind of my framework for how my musical writing style was or is. So for me, it's still just kind of seamless. When we put the album together, the first cut, Every Side of You, Joey wrote that song. And, you know, it was a whirlwind getting everything up. I think we recorded everything in about 6 weeks, mixed and mastered in 8 total. You know, it was a whirlwind. But when that song came out and I started singing it, you know, we started putzing a little bit with some of the melody lines within it, and all of a sudden, you know, this Babies singer's voice came out, right? You know, you listen to that song, it sounds a little bit like Wait would have sang almost exactly that, and even with some of the grit that's in there, I feel that it's one step to the right for me to channel myself to get to John. It's not too much of a, you know, a stretch for me to try to get the tone there. You know, it's just kind of part of the fabric.
How did the band come up with the name of the Babies?
There's so many different stories about that. I believe that they, you know, back in the day, I think they were all in a cafe trying to figure out what the names were, and they wanted to appeal to the younger audience. And somebody flippantly, and Tony says they might have been drunk, you know, just call themselves the Babies. Didn't even spell it with an IES or even an apostrophe. So, you know, I always constantly have to say, if you don't know who the name of the band is, it's BABYS, no apostrophe and no plural. I think it was just a temporary name that ended up sticking, and they were forced to keep it.
Okay, because sometimes sometimes there's weird things behind the names of bands. What are some of the other bands, John, that you've played in your career?
Well, you know, I cut my teeth, had a couple of little independent deals, one with a group called The Nameless, and then I was morphed into a band called Azure Blue, and then I'd mentioned Mike Hansen. When he left Glass Tiger, he did a lot of stuff with the Pointer Sisters, and then we formed a band called Hall of Souls with a couple of guys from Russia, like a group called America, actually, that a bunch of Russian guys did. So we had 2 guys from America, and then Mike from Glass Tiger, and then myself. We were like a little power, you know, rock group that, gosh, we were really into Van Halen back in the day. So at that point, it was more Van Hagar style with a great guitar player, great keyboard player. I played bass and sang, and Mike on the drums. That was a powerhouse. And when grunge and rap came and wiped us all off the map in, you know, early 90s, that was it for a while. In my musical career, I started doing a lot of stuff, playing Jesus and Jesus Christ Superstar, doing some, you know, tours, replacing Ted Neely here and there, Sebastian Bach, and that just kept the chops up, and waited for rock to turn back around, and, you know, all these years later, here it comes again. So it's all cyclical.
Jesus Christ Superstar, one of my favorite shows to see. That's pretty awesome. I know that if you look at the Babies on Facebook, there's actually 2 different pages. There's one that's called The Babies, and there's one that's The Babies Original. How come there's people that are out there trying to spoof other pages of bands?
Yeah, you get the fans and that have their fan clubs, and it's all good. I mean, they've got, you know, I think every one of the Babies, past and present, I think, have their own fan page of some sort. And, you know, and some we congregate, and some, you know, we just kind of leave alone, and, you know, it's fun. Hey, as long as people are talking about it, it's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I clicked on the one, and I see Kenny Wilkerson's picture on there.
There you go.
From
my old Nova Rex buddy.
I was going to say Nova Rex. Actually, it's funny because he's the reason why I think you and I talked the first time is because of the relationship that Kenny and I developed over the course of the year. So being in rock and roll, got to ask this, you know, the whole you know, 70s, 80s, 90s sex, drug, rock and roll that we used to hear about a lot. I mean, was that really the case?
You know, so I didn't really have a big rock career in the 70s. I was still youngish, but, you know, hey, it's debauchery at its best, you know. I mean, it really doesn't matter if you're a mainstream, you know, headlining top tier 1 band, or if you're just some pay-to-play scrub in, you know, playing the Strip out in L.A., right? You know, you get up on stage and all of a sudden you're larger than life to people, and, you know, sometimes anything goes. It's a different beast, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I'll bet. So I know that next week you guys are playing with Jefferson Starship. So, but that's, I mean, it's in North Carolina.
Right.
But who have you ever had the chance to play with, like a hero of yours, or, you know, like a band that you loved, or were kind of taken back, like, oh, I get to play. Oh man, I get to play with X.
So I worked with a company that when they have their national kickoffs and what have you, they would bring bands in or A-listers, if you will, and so we through the years you walk through and you had a bunch of people from Survivor or LA Guns or Rat and a couple of all-star bands, but recently I hooked up with a company called PRG, and they're a big production company based all over the place, but I think they're based out of Baltimore. And my buddy Pat Hand called me up and said, "Hey, I'd love you to join this all-star band, and we've got some really cool players that are coming." And so I went to the show. It ended up being Mark Rivera, who's the saxophone player for Billy Joel, a great singer in his own right. Garrett St. Holmes was the guitar player. Greg Raleigh was the keyboard player. Tito was the drummer. I mean, we just had it was an all-star who's who, and I was kind of the young blood on there. We're doing some baby tunes and had a great time with it. So yeah, I've been able to play on stage with a few of my heroes. I mean, Greg Raleigh from back in the day is like I'm taking pictures with him and texting him while we're doing Black Magic Woman to my guitar player was a huge Journey fan back in the day, going, "Hey dude, check this out," and here's Greg Raleigh and myself. So no, yeah, it's fun rubbing elbows from time to time.
Even rock stars do selfies. John Bisaha joining me this morning from The Babies. You want more information? TheBabiesOriginal.com. Thanks a lot for joining us. It's 8:30.